This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and today we are doing a special series on bullying for Avoid the Maze. And the reason it's on Avoid the Maze is because oftentimes when either we are subject to a bully or we are the bully or we're experiencing it around us, um, sometimes we just don't know how to get out of that feeling of being neglected, being abused, and just not being able to be ourselves. So, my guest today is Deidra. She's a young woman who, if you saw her picture right now, you probably would think she's got the world in her arms. Nobody would ever bully her. However, Deidra, I think you told me that you were bullied growing up.
I was.
So, how did you know it was the difference between being bullied or just being teased because that's what people do?
You know, it took me a little bit to kind of decipher the two, but I started to understand it a little more when the comments came a little more frequently. And I noticed that it was more of a joke to them. Like it was kind of funny that I'm the size that I am and that I wasn't happy about it. They thought that, I had no reason to be unhappy, that I need to be grateful. And the comments just kept coming constant, constant, constant. Even, me trying to laugh it off and kind of sweep it under the rug. They would still kind of come. And then a few weeks would go by and then I'd get another comment about my weight. And I started to realize that it wasn't just here and there, that this is actually what they thought of me. They thought that I was either had issues or I was too skinny for a reason. And, it got to the point where I started believing what they were saying because they were saying it so much and it was so constant in my head. I would constantly think about these things that they would say to me on the weekends, after school. So everything that was thrown at me during the day, I would bring home and then I wouldn't even talk about it because I didn't understand it. And it just kind of stuck there. And it's like a snowball effect. Once you hear it so many times, you start to wonder, well, they might be right. Why are they saying it? Why do they keep saying it? And it was difficult for me because it started pretty young. And, kids our age, when we're in elementary and middle school, they really don't empathize as much because we're young. We're at the age that we were. So it was really hard for me to process any of that among my peers who are supposed to be my friends, but they don't agree with my body type because they don't think they don't think that, I can just be the size that I am. It's got to be an issue or there's something wrong with it. So it was really difficult for me to navigate through pretty much middle school and high school because that's mostly when it happened.
And, for our listeners out there, sometimes we think, somebody who is tall and slender like Deidra is, we tend to be jealous if we're not in that same stature. And sometimes that's what causes the bullying. It's not that you don't look right or you don't look beautiful. It's, well, if I can't look like that, I'm just going to pick on that person, um, because why should they look so good? And I know when I was growing up, uh, I was never considered the fat girl, but I definitely was not the thin girl. And I remember, being bullied about that as well. Like, you don't fit in. And they would show me why I didn't fit in. You're like right in the middle. And it'd be like, well, why do I have to look exactly like you and do what you do to be part of the group? So when you were going through this yourself, were you able to come home and talk to your family about it?
No. And you know what? I think that was obviously where other issues happened because I didn't even know how to approach it because like you said, a lot of the people that were commenting on this were people that were obviously not the same physique or size as I was. So they wanted my physique, my, I was active, I was able to run, I was in track, I was in sports. So they wanted kind of the lifestyle that I had because I was so thin. However, it's not as happy and go lucky as people think. For them, they want to be my size and they think that this is happy, normal. And for me, I've struggled with gaining weight my entire life. So I almost am jealous of them. So it's like, you know, you always want what you can't have.
Right.
And it was the complete opposite. And I would try to plead to them like, hey, I don't like being this thin. I have tried so hard I eat all the time. I try to gain weight. And, you know, it was hard for me to hear these comments when I'm trying to gain weight.
Right.
And I'm trying to look at the size I want to look to feel good. But they're constantly telling me things like, you should be happy the way that you are. Oh, stop it. You know, you have the perfect body. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. You don't need to go to the gym, you know, and I'm doing these things to make myself feel good about myself. But it's just, people don't understand the other side of it. I struggle. I still struggle to gain weight, and I'm still not where I want to be. And it's just, I wish people would really understand, because I would never make a comment on someone else's weight at all, regardless how they look, anything like that. Right. So I think people just really confuse a lot of this criteria. You know, there's no normal. So I don't feel normal. I don't feel myself. I would like to gain weight, but again, a lot of society thinks that you need to be thin and a certain size to be pretty. And that's just that's not ideal.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it causes a lot of issues when people don't understand the other side of it.
And, you know, and sometimes when we're on the outside looking in, you know, we don't dare ask the questions that we should be, so that we aren't bullying you or others for who you are. And when I say that, it's, you know, I can be envious of the fact that you can eat whatever you want and you don't gain an ounce. I can look at food and I can gain 10 pounds. But, you know, that's okay. I am me. And I want people to like me for me, not necessarily for what my outer shell looks like, because my outer shell is just a small portion of who I am. And,
right.
You know, it's getting more prevalent that people are being abused and bullied. You know, they'll say, well, you know, I grew up with it, so, you know, I see nothing wrong with it. They bring it into their home. And there are a lot of parents today who actually bully their kids because they were bullied as youngsters. And until we have that dialogue to don't understand that. So you have 3 boys, 2 who are in school.
Yes.
Do they ever come home and tell you about, you know, maybe they've been bullied, or they see it happening on the playground or in the classroom?
So yes, actually, my 2 older boys are 8 and 9, and they are pretty much the polar opposite. My oldest one is very athletic. He has my physique. So again, he can kind of eat whatever he wants and it just goes right through him. He doesn't really gain too much weight. My middle child is just like his father. He's just a different physique. So, you know, he has to kind of maybe watch what he eats, and we have a nutritionist and we make sure we eat healthy just so everyone's on the same page. But he is definitely the bigger little brother.
Okay. Get it.
So that has caused a lot of issues with him. He has been bullied several times about his weight and his size, because people, his peers among him, know that he's the little brother and they go to the same school. So they compare the two. So since his peers were starting to compare, he constantly compares himself now. Mason's better than me. Mason's faster than me. Why can Mason eat that, 3 times and I cannot? Or mommy, I don't want to eat that because I don't want to get bigger. So it's definitely an issue. It almost makes it harder for me because, again, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. Right. So I don't want to say, you shouldn't eat that, but your brother can. So I just make sure we all eat the same things. We eat healthy. It's not to gain weight or lose weight. It's to be healthy. That way I'm not singled out. He's not singled out. Mason's not singled out. But I can only do so much because a lot of it, like you said, happens at school. And that's a lot of what the other kids are taught at home as well. So I can only prevent so much with my children. And I try to tell them, not everyone comes from the same household. And sometimes people don't mean what they say. And sometimes they don't even know what they're saying. They're children. And I just try to encourage him and give him the confidence that he needs. But it's definitely still an issue among young children. I mean, they're
Absolutely.
8 and 9. So he has definitely, and he's going into third grade. So first and second grade was already difficult for him, being bullied about his weight and his size. And in sports, he's a little slower, but he's like in football, he's a good heavy hitter, but he's just not fast. But kids among his age will kind of single that out, like, oh, Nolan was last today in the race. But that's not, I tell him, that's not just what makes you, your speed, your agility. That's not just you're good at other things. And that's what we want to focus on. That's okay. You don't have to be the best at everything. You just try your best at everything. So it's a lot of encouragement. And I've been through it, so I can kind of understand a little bit of it. But again, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. So I try to encourage him and let him know that I understand what he's feeling. But it does make me sad because I know how it feels to not feel comfortable and for people to constantly remind you that you're not comfortable with your body.
Well, and I see so much of it going on in our world, and especially since the pandemic. So I have a group of women friends who are between like 55 and 75. And there were in this group, a lot of them decided because of the pandemic, not being able to get their hair done, they decided to go gray. And that's fine. I was one of the ones who held out, and I said, no, I don't like the gray. So as soon as my hairdresser is available, I'm going back to blonde. But I've heard our friends in this group bully the women who went gray. And I will tell you that all of them did it in such a dignified, beautiful way. And they have great hairdos and whatever. Yeah, I don't look at them as saying, well, you let yourself go. No, you didn't let yourself go. You were ready to be who you really are without all the chemicals on your head. And I'm sort of envious of that because I'd love to do it, but I tried on a gray wig one day and I felt like my great great grandmother. So I bullied myself. And that's the other issue that I think sometimes once a person makes a statement to us that is not flattering, we tend to bully ourselves about it. And in some degree, you may have done that, well, everybody, they don't like me because I'm so thin. So I'm going to go eat something that can put some weight on me. And then once that didn't happen, well, maybe I'll eat 2 more, or maybe I won't go out and exercise. And we don't want that to happen to ourselves either. We want to be the people that we're supposed to be.
Right.
So
absolutely.
And I've seen pictures of your 3 boys, and your middle son, at least in pictures, does not look big. Is he slightly bigger than maybe somebody else in his classroom? That's a possibility. He's not as thin as his older brother, but he's not his older brother.
Right.
Okay. And if they were clones, that would be different, but they're not. So when he comes home from school and tells you something may have happened in the classroom, on the playground, do you feel compelled that you need to go to the school and figure out what's going on there? Or do you keep it as a family issue and try to deal with it just at home?
The first thing I do when he's came home with any issues like that is the first thing I do is ask him how he feels about it, because I want to gauge how he perceived it, how he understood it, and kind of where he's left on it. Because there's been a few times where he's either gotten bullied or in a little, tiff or an argument with someone on the school bus, and he's came home and talked to me about it. And it turns out that, he's either okay with it and he's already processed it himself. And he's just like, Mom, it's okay. I don't, we don't need to go through it. I'm okay with it. There's some instances where he understands that it's not necessarily that person being mean to him. And he's kind of learned to process it himself, but there's been more times than not that he's came home in tears, where I can already see that it's affected him far beyond than it should have. So in those instances, I do talk to him about it first, make sure that he's okay with me bringing it to the attention of the principal and the teachers,
Sure.
because he is so sensitive in general. So I don't want to single him out or make it a big deal or make it even worse for him or magnify it in any way. So I make sure that he's on board with the action that I'm going to take, which he typically is. So I talked to him about it first that evening, and I just listened to him, because that's more or less what he needs. He just feels like people don't understand him, and he feels like he's not understood. So in that moment, I make sure that he knows that I understand him and that I love him the way that he is. And then we together talk about a plan of action. Like, okay, let's talk to the teacher. Let's talk to the principal, and maybe that kid just needs, to talk to his mommy so he understands what he's saying to you. Maybe he doesn't even know what he said to you. So I do try to do that, because some of these kids have been his friends. Some of these kids have been to my house. Some of these kids have been to our birthday parties. So I don't want to say these are, of course, they're not bad children. They are children. So I just try to remind my son that, and that we can't expect us from other people, and we just got to respect our own boundaries and other people's, whether we agree with them or not. So it's just a lot of prevention education. That's the most that I can do. I obviously cannot control what other parents are teaching their kids or not teaching their kids, and and what happens. So I just try to encourage him, because when he comes home, this is his safe place. So I just try to remind him before he goes back out without me that, he is who he is. I love him the way he is. His brother loves him the way he is, and he doesn't need to change or eat less, eat more, anything like that, if he does not want to. He's not unhealthy, like you said. He is bigger than kids his age, but he's not unhealthy. He's not obese. So it's difficult, and I'm still navigating through it. I still get comments today like, eat a cheeseburger, or you need a milkshake, or did you even comments from my family? Oh, Deidra's gonna eat, and then she's probably gonna go get rid of it in 2 minutes, like making jokes that I either am bulimic or anorexic, and it's funny to them. It's not funny to me. I don't want to be thin. I eat all the time. So it just like, it's almost offensive, I'm just like, this is not fun for me. I eat double my calories to hope that I gain 5 pounds and feel a little bit better, not even at my best, just a little bit better.
It's interesting because you really grew up through the anorexic and bulimic, I guess,
Era
age
almost.
era. Thank you. Yeah. And, I remember back then I had lost a ton of weight. I had worked on it so hard, and I came home to visit my parents, and my father looked at me and he said, "What is wrong with you?" Now I was feeling great about myself. And I said, "Why? What's wrong, Dad? What do you see?" And he goes, um, you look like you're on your deathbed." Well, I thought I looked terrific. Okay. It's probably the one and only time I ever wore a size 1. And I did it for probably about 6 months, because I kept getting comments like that from friends and family. So, we have to be careful what we say and how we say it, because there are so many things that people just don't know about us.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. And I think that misunderstanding is so detrimental to a lot of children in relationships that are being built, because it's hard for me to explain to my son what another woman's son means when she says that. I can tell him what we mean when we say things, but it's so hard to look at him and try to get him to understand that his friend maybe didn't mean what he said. He just doesn't understand it. But to him, as soon as he hears it, that sticks with him. So then I kind of have to undo it hoping that it doesn't happen again and stick even harder the next time.
Right.
So it's just a never ending cycle.
And, we grew up, with the nursery rhyme, sticks and stones will break my bones and names will never hurt me. But those names do hurt us. They
Yes.
take us down a path that maybe we wouldn't have gone down if somebody had not used those words or, um, even done worse. So, I mean, you obviously
Absolutely.
do a great job, but how do you do it as a single mom?
Well, sometimes it's almost like I'm on autopilot. I know there's, a handful of things that have to be done in a day. And I know that my kids have certain needs that need to be met on certain days of the week, whether it's sports or emotional needs, or make sure we have lunch together. So we're caught up as a family. And I just make sure I hit the important points, and I make sure that their little love buckets are full at the end of the day. And there's several things that I don't get done, but my main focus with my children is that they feel happy when they go to sleep and they feel good when they wake up, because I don't, I'm not with them while they're at school. So the
Right.
best that I can do is try to use my resources and prepare them the best that I can. And although I have a 2-year-old as well, so he definitely keeps us busy, and he's also a good distraction anytime my kids are kind of caught up in any drama at school or they're having tiffs with their friends. The youngest is just so innocent, and he's just a pure little genuine ball of love. So definitely we just keep ourselves busy. We cling on to the happy things that keep us going, and I just continue to encourage them that life isn't always the same. It's going to change. You're going to meet new people. You're going to change. I'm going to change. Those friends are going to change. So I don't want them to think that how things are right now is how life is always going to be. So the problems we face now, we may not face in 5 years, but we may face different problems in 5 years. So any kind of issue that comes along that I can educate them through, or just kind of break down so they understand it a little more before getting angry or upset at someone, that's really my goal. Because a lot of anger and fights happen because there's a misunderstanding or there's a disconnect, or someone was offended because someone said something that they didn't know was offensive. So I just really try to navigate through that. Sometimes you have to accept apologies you've never gotten. So I just try to really prepare my children for, the real world. It's not always, happy go lucky, and they're going to face problems, but I want them to be prepared and to have a lot of confidence that they can get through these issues without completely breaking down or letting it get to them to where they're not happy.
So your kids have been through a lot in their very short life. Um, and
Yes.
again, the only thing that, I see is what you put up on Facebook. And if we're all smart, we're only putting really the nicest stuff about ourselves and our family on Facebook. But
Right.
um, they see you're too older, and I can't talk about the youngest because he's only 2 years old, but
Mm-hmm.
your two oldest boys, they, they appear from what you're saying and what you've put out for the public that they are living it day by day, and they're learning. And that's because you're helping keep them aware of some basic things. What you're going through right now could feel really terrible and you're hurting, but that realistically, that's not going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
Something else is going to come along, and all of a sudden, you're going to be laughing and smiling and almost forget what you were so upset about
Yes.
earlier in the day. And when my youngest was growing up, we tried to share that with him, and um, he really just could not grasp it. It was like, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not good at this moment, I'll never be good. And he'd bring himself down further until he broke out of it, but he would never admit that he broke out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then as he got older, and within this last year, something happened to remind him of a number of bullying incidents. And all of a sudden he shared it with us. And he was having PTSD. And
Uh,
the reason he never talked to us about it, even though we tried, was that in his mind, and I'm not sure where he got it, neither does he just felt that he had to be perfect all the time.
mm,
And that is not what we have ever taught in our home. But
right.
but it made me go back and ask myself the same question. You know, what did I say that may have, stuck in his brain like that? Because I may
Right.
have said something unwillingly. And luckily, he hasn't held that against us. We're talking it through. But to our listeners, we all have to be careful what we say. And if we say something incorrectly and can catch ourselves, we've got to apologize. We have
Yeah.
to make sure that our kids understand.
Yes, I definitely, the one thing that I do make sure that I do is I apologize to them when I know that I'm wrong. Um, because I'm really big on keeping your word and following through when people depend on you, and making sure that you are teachable. If you can't be teachable and learn when you're wrong, and get, to understand that sometimes what you said maybe may have hurt someone or came out wrong, or think even as an adult. So
Right.
I make sure they see me as a mom and as an adult, as a sister, as a daughter, apologizing anytime I may have offended someone or hurt someone or just said something wrong. Because I don't want them to be on the other end of that spectrum and maybe
Right.
be bullying someone and not knowing that they're bullying someone. So there's different forms of bullying. They still can't believe that I've been bullied for the same reasons that everybody else, like, mom, you're really tall, and you're so fast, and you play tennis and basketball and this and that and yada yada. And I'm like, I know, but mommy has had a lot of problems to get to where I am. I can't walk into a gym without feeling like everyone is staring at me. So, a lot of people think that I work out all the time and I eat really healthy because I'm tall and thin, and I just kind of live a really easy breezy life, but I don't at all. It's extremely difficult for me to gain weight. I've had a gym pass for about 6 months, but I have so much anxiety about people staring at me, thinking, why is she even in the gym? She doesn't need to be here. She should be at home, eating 5 cheeseburgers and sitting down watching TV, not doing anything, and it's just like, I'm here to feel good about myself. I'm here to,
Absolutely.
just blow off some steam to kind of get some, and it's just, I don't want to have to explain that to people. And it's just a little sad as an adult that I still have to, because people my age that I've still went to school with that even still know me will still make comments like that when they see me, like, hey, you look the same. You need to go eat a cheeseburger. Hey, get 2 ice creams, not just
Yeah.
one. And I'm just like, do you have any idea how much I've eaten today so far? It's like, it's just not, they just don't understand. And it's not all butterflies over here. It's just as difficult for me to gain weight as it is for someone who is trying to lose weight.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and our body chemistries are all different. So,
Yes.
you can hear online, if you drink this supplement, um, you're going to be able to gain weight. Or if you drink this supplement, it's just going to melt right off of you. And the
Right.
reality of it is, it's not going to. You do have to put your work into it, but your
Yeah.
body is going to tell you, okay, that it's had enough. So I
Yeah.
went to the doctor back in, I think it was October, and I said, you know, through the pandemic, I put on these 10 pounds. I can't get them off. And his first reaction was, well, maybe it's what you're eating. So I kept a diary. I mean, to the point that as soon as I'd finish eating, what did I eat? And I counted
Mm-hmm.
calories. But to make a long story short, what happened was when I saw him again in March, I still hadn't lost any weight. But from the exercising, the first thing he said to me was, wow, you really put a lot of work into this. He said, he looks at the number from the scale. He said, please ignore that. And that's the first time I've ever been told by a doctor, you know, don't worry about
Yeah.
the number. You know, you're getting your sleep, you're feeling good, you've been exercising and you're solid. Okay, this is who you're meant to be. And
Yeah.
I went home and I looked in the mirror and I said, okay, this is who I'm meant to be. Um, and
Yeah.
you're meant to be who you are. And um, eating an extra cheeseburger just because I suggest it um, should play no part in who you are. So,
Right. I agree. I definitely am. I navigate it through obviously a lot better now than I did then, but
sure.
I am very fearful of my children and how they're going to encounter these issues as they get older, middle school and high school. It was really rough for me when it came to comparing myself to other girls.
Right.
And and I know that's what they're going to do. I constantly compared myself. I was either not the same size, or other women may have, or other girls may have had longer, prettier hair, or, developed quicker than me. And I was just kind of sitting here like, oh my God, I can't even gain 1 pound. And these girls are totally, full figured, beautiful, what I want to be. And I just can't get there. So it doesn't go away. You have to really just learn to be happy with yourself. And like you said, understand that we are all entirely different and there's no normal. It's just where you feel good and where you feel happy. And that's where I want my kids to be, is to understand that they're happy and their normal does not have to be someone else's happy and normal. Not everyone is going to agree, and you don't have to make everyone happy. And I think that's what they struggle with, is making sure that their friends like them, and making sure that their teachers think that they're doing their best, and they want to make everybody proud. But I don't want them to focus on other people and their opinions more than their own. So
Exactly.
it's a work in progress, but we're definitely working on it.
Well, I'm so grateful that you shared your story today. I'm hoping that our listeners really um, can start to understand and can start to make the changes that we need to first at home. Because if you make those changes at home, then our kids won't take those bad behaviors into the school, into the
Mm-hmm.
playground. Um, and if we can start eliminating the bullying, I think we would have a much happier life as parents, because we wouldn't have to be so worried about our kids when they go off to school in the morning. But most
Mm-hmm.
important, um, let's learn how to enjoy to be ourselves. I think that's the key.
I think that is absolutely, I agree. I think that's the main focus. And I think once we establish a good foundation, then I think even if the bullying continues or doesn't continue, that as long as my kids have a good foundation, understanding of who they are and where they want to be, that those comments are going to start becoming few, far, and in between. And they're not going to stick to them as much as they stick to them now. So I just keep encouraging them that every day gets better. Every day is going to get better as you get older, as those other kids get older. No one remains the same. You're supposed to change. You're supposed to grow. So I just continue to help them grow to where they want to be. And I make sure that no other comments are in there. Um, and we have school coming up this year. So I'm definitely gearing up for a whole nother year of hopefully no issues, but
Right.
it's inevitable here and there. So I'm really excited for them to start, but I'm also a little nervous, them going into, especially after the pandemic, and,
Right.
everything's been so out of normal. So I hope that the structure is good. And I hope all of the kids going back are just happy and thankful to be back, that there's no really any, I can't say there's no bullying, but I hope that there's much significant less bullying, because we're going back to school, and, it's been a long year and a half.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
hope that it's a much better school year than it was last year. And I'm really looking forward to it. We've done the best that we can this summer to prep for school, and we've been eating our best. We've been active. So we feel good as of now. So I'm hoping to just keep that energy and push it along to the first day of school, and that we just navigate through this new school year one day at a time.
Well, let your family know that we're thinking of all of you, and it should be a good year. And your boys are very lucky to have you, Deidra, as a mom. So,
Thank you.
all right. Thanks again for joining us. And again, this is Karen with newclevelandradio.net. Avoid the maze. Let's stop the bullying. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thanks. Have a good one.